Okay, you're up.
Good evening. The Havre de Grace Planning Commission meeting for December 14th, 2020 will now come to order. I will call the roll. Chair Volney Ford is present. Mr. Harry Miller,
I'm here.
present. Mrs. Shaw,
Hi, Mr. Ford, present.
okay. Mr. Hartenstein,
I'm here. Go ahead, Farhat.
I'm sorry, Mr. Ford, before you move on, I just wanted to let you know that I am a resident of Bully Rock in case that is a issue for anyone.
okay, I'll come back to that. To establish quorum, we actually call the roll for everybody that's present. Once we've got quorum, then if anyone feels like they have to recuse themselves, they can do so once we've established quorum. Okay, so Jim Miller,
I'm here.
Councilman Renziker,
Mr. Ford, pleasure to be here.
and Mrs. Ware. Mrs. Ware, you need to unmute. I can see your face, so I'm going to count you as present.
Volney, also,
Why is it
for
not
the
working?
sake of disclosure, I am also a resident of Bully Rock.
Just click it like you normally do.
Okay, we have established quorum with 7 members of the commission present. Now,
Present.
thank you. So Mr. Hartenstein and
Now what?
Mrs. Shaw, do you wish to recuse yourself from this proceeding?
I don't feel it's necessary, but I just wanted to let everybody know in case there's an issue, if anybody feels that.
Okay, Mr. Hartenstein?
I feel similarly. I don't feel the need to recuse myself, but if it's a problem for anyone, I certainly will.
Okay, do any of the other commissioners feel like that a recusal is appropriate? Does the administration feel like a recusal is appropriate?
I don't feel like it's appropriate unless Mr. Ward has any objections to.
I was going to him next. So the applicant, Mr. Ward?
No, as long as they have the best interests of Bully Rock at heart, I think they should be present.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so we are underway, and I'm going to now call on Mr. Grimm to discuss some protocols for these hearings.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Ford. I'd like to thank everybody for attending this evening. As I said earlier, I appreciate your patience as we migrate to a virtual environment. This is our first evening having public attend a virtual meeting, so I would appreciate your patience as we work through that. For any attendees that are part of the public, you are likely in a virtual waiting room at this time. First, we will hear from parcel N, which, to the best of my knowledge, all the individuals that are interested in participating in the meeting are interested in parcel F. Parcel F will come second on the agenda. There will be some discussion under parcel N, which could take anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour. We hope not, but you probably will not get an opportunity to hear about parcel F until 7:15, 7:30 potentially. And then once we get to that case, we will allow all of the participants into the Zoom meeting, but you will be muted. And then we will call on each of you one by one to provide your comments. I would ask that you be respectful of the Planning Commission. Do not use any foul language. Please keep your microphones muted when you're not speaking. And the Planning Commission Chair reserves the right at any time to remove someone from the virtual meeting, public or otherwise. So again, Appreciate your patience. If you're having any issues during the meeting, I am monitoring my emails, and you can send me an email and I will try to assist you. Furthermore, if there is any public that was not aware of this meeting and came to City Hall and saw that it's been changed to a virtual meeting, I will allow you to still participate in this meeting if you send me an email with your name, address, and your name and address will be fine. Obviously, I'll have your email, and then I will have you invited into the virtual meeting so you can still participate. If you cannot participate but still have questions, you can contact me at any time via email or by phone, and I will respond to your questions. I took the time to try to answer everybody that sent me an email today with questions. I tried to respond to those questions, but they may be reiterated this evening, and I'm happy to respond to them. And I'm sure the consultant and the developers are happy to respond to them. And at this time, Mr. Ford, I think that's all I have. I would just ask that before we start with parcel F later on in this evening, that you give me an opportunity to make another announcement that people may send me an email with their email address. And that's all I have at this time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Grimm. Now, I would like to just cover a few brief operating procedures. I will keep my mic live at all times because I have to constantly be able to jump in or interject or call on somebody or so forth. I would ask that every other participant keep their mic muted unless called upon to speak. When I call the roll of commissioners, well, I've already called the roll. If you wish to speak at any time during the meeting, please raise your hand. If we've got video, please raise your hand and I will call upon you as quickly as I possibly can. When voting, please speak your vote as I call the roll. If we have trouble with your audio, but you can hear me, I'll ask you to raise your hand and we can vote that way. I will ask anybody speaking to the commission other than staff to give us your name and your address. It can either be your residence or it can be your business address. Okay, so we'll get started. The first case tonight is building permit number 2021-0211. The project is the development of 182 condominium units on what is known as parcel N of Bully Rock. This is a review of a site plan for those condominiums that will be located in 7 buildings, all within parcel N. The owner is Bully Rock Investments, LLC. The developer Sage Ventures, LLC. So, Mr. Grimm, back to you. If you'd give us an opening synopsis of this request.
Thank you again, Mr. Ford. I would ask that if Jeff Thompson could put up the site plan for parcel N, and then once you get to the developer and consultant, then they can dictate what attachments they want to be shown. So let's see. There we go. That should be fine, Jeff. Thank you. So I'll get started by just letting you know that this project is part of the Bully Rock development. As you know, there are numerous parcels that have been developed throughout the project, and this is one of the remaining parcels that has not been developed. Again, it is known as parcel N. It's located on the south side of Bully Rock Parkway, across from Master Derby Drive. It's approximately 10.6 acres and is zoned R residential district. And as we know, the Bully Rock development was developed as a planned adult community under those code provisions in the city code, and it's developed out utilizing those standards. The project is for 182 condominium units in 7 buildings within parcel N, and those condo units have garages underneath as well as surface parking. Parcel N was previously approved by the Planning Commission in 2007 for 144 condominium units in 9 buildings. That approval has since expired, and the plat that was recorded for the parcel also is no longer applicable because the parcel N was subdivided to create a second or another development parcel that will be developed in the future. The project was previously, or the project site was previously graded, so the majority of the area is open, but there are some areas of forest and scattered trees and non-tidal wetlands associated with streams on the site or adjacent to the site. And the topography of parcel N is generally flat in the middle, but it can get moderate to steeply sloping around the edges of the project, as evidenced by a retaining wall on the property already. The property will be served by city water and sewer that is already present within the community. Any residents with children, their children will attend Havre de Grace Elementary School and the new Havre de Grace Middle High School. The Department of Planning has reviewed the project in accordance with all applicable city code sections related to the review of site development and site plans, and specifically Chapter 155, and found that it meets all applicable code requirements. The Director of Public Works has also reviewed the project and has offered comments, which are included in my recommendation and suggested conditions. The Department of Planning recommends approval of the site plan, subject to the conditions outlined in my report. I won't go through all of those, as you all should have those, but a lot of them are standard boilerplate type conditions that the developer has seen before. And also the Department of Public Works has provided their conditions as well. Again, the Department of Planning recommends approval of the site plan subject to those conditions. And that's all I have at this time. Thank you, Mr. Ford.
Thank you very much, Mr. Grimm. Now, at this time, go to the applicant and his team. Who would wish to speak first?
Go ahead.
This is James Kiefer. I'm with Morris and Ritchie Associates. I guess I will speak first. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Again, my name is James Kiefer. I'm a registered landscape architect and associate with Morris and Ritchie Associates. Our address here is 3445A Box Hill Corporate Center Drive, Abingdon, Maryland 21001. Also with me is Frank Hirsch, who's the president of our company, Jeff Mathai, who's a professional engineer, and also Taylor Becker, who's also a landscape architect with our firm. I believe that Mr. Grimm gave a good synopsis of the project. And I'm just wondering, is Gil Horwitz on the Zoom meeting?
I'm here, yes.
Okay. So if there are questions about the site plan, certainly we can address those. But as I said, I believe Shane was pretty accurate and pretty complete in his description of it. And I will turn it over at this point to Mr. Horwitz for a description of the unit.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Ford and everyone else of the Planning Commission. Appreciate the opportunity to present the project. Could I have trouble, I'm not sure who's in charge of sharing the screen, but if they could put up the slide that shows the unit, that would be great.
Before we go further, sir, would you just give us your name again?
Sorry, yes. Gil Horwitz. I'm the principal of Sage Ventures. We're located at 1777 Reisterstown Road, Suite 245 in Baltimore, Maryland.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So as Mr. Grimm mentioned, the project was previously approved for 144 condo units divided over 9 buildings. The most significant change between the concepts of the two projects was the original approval had all of the units being surface parked units. Our proposal is to build what is referred to as a mansion style building, and the building itself provides for one garage, one individual garage per unit. Each building will have 26 units, and there are 26 individual garages on the sides and on the front of the building. And on the first floor of the building, there are also 2 units that will exit out at grade on the rear of the building. The building will have an elevator, one elevator per building, and of course the required emergency stairways on either side of the building. If you could go to the next slide over here. And then this is the floor plan that will be on the second, third, and fourth floors with eight units per floor. All of the units have balconies. All of the units will be at least 2 bedroom and 2 bath. The units on the end will either have a den or some additional room, and all of the units will also have separate laundry rooms within the unit. And then the next slide just shows the general vision of the elevations. We're still working through different colors, but this is a good representation of where we're headed. The building materials will comprise of stone veneer and vinyl siding, and then of course the garage doors for all of the individual garage units. That I would say is a brief overview of the building. I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody may have.
Okay, at this point, I would like to ask if any of the commissioners have questions about this presentation or about Mr. Grimm's presentation so far. No questions? Okay, we will proceed. Is anyone else wish to speak?
I got a question. I'll just ask this. What's the height of the building? This is Jim Miller. The height of the proposed building, do you have a idea on that?
I don't have that number off of the top of my head right now. Each floor will be approximately 10.5 feet from the floor level to the beginning of the next floor. So to the top of the fourth floor will be approximately 40 feet. I don't know, Shane, is that pulled out on the plans?
This is James Kiefer. The architect had told us they estimate that it's likely to be about 63 feet from the average grade plane to the ridge line.
Thank you, James.
Mr. Ford, if I may
Yes.
briefly interject, just for the record, in the R district for planned adult communities, the height limitation is 80 feet. So technically they could go up to 80 feet per code, but they are correct that it's roughly 63 feet proposed now.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions from the commission? Thank you, Mr. Miller. Anyone else? Okay, I will, if the applicant wishes to proceed, whoever would like to speak next. Who's the ringleader?
I guess by default that would be me, but I believe from a presentation standpoint we've covered all of the aspects of the project that we wish to present, so we don't have anything additional to present at this time.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone that's checked in from the public that wishes to speak to this this case?
Boney, I do not have anybody that's checked in from the public to speak to this case, but I do have something that was submitted to me via email to read into the record.
Please.
Okay. Bear with me because I believe most of them are in the form of a question. So I'll read them and we'll attempt to answer them or have the consultant answer them. This was submitted by Mr. Kenneth Bell of 467 Majestic Prince Circle, and he has 10 questions. His first question, is parcel F considered part of the Bully Rock residences? I take that back. I'm sorry, Volney. When I spoke with him earlier today, I was led to believe that he was interested in parcel N. So I will withhold these comments because clearly based on what I'm reading here, he's interested in parcel F, which is next. So my apologies.
Okay.
At this time, I do not have any comments from.
So you have no one else?
That's correct, sir.
Correct. Okay. Okay, well, hearing nothing else from any quarter here, I'm going to open this up to discussion from commissioners. Any opinions, observations? Anyone? Yes, Mr. Councilman Renziger.
Yes, if I could get clarification, in the center of the map, it says PR Community Park. What does PR stand for? Is that not a typo? Is it supposed to be BR Community Park for Bully Rock, or what does the PR stand for?
Proposed, Jimmy. It's
Proposed, okay.
It's whenever you see PR on a plan, generally it means proposed.
Well, I guess I learn something new every day.
Well, you read these kind of plans, you're going to learn something every day from now on because they're just loaded with stuff. That's really interesting stuff. Anyone else have a comment or observation or recommendation? Okay, hearing none. I'm going to now ask for a motion, and keep in mind when you move that we also like to include in these motions the recommendations and suggested conditions that are from the department. They like to include that information. Who would like to move? Councilman Renziger.
I make a motion that we approve the site plan to include the staff report and the conditions therein listed.
Do I hear a second? Mr. Jim Miller, you're seconding?
Yes, I'll second that.
All right, any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Hartenstein.
Aye.
Mrs. Shaw. Mrs. Shaw.
Aye.
Okay. Mr. Harry Miller.
Yes.
Mrs. Ware.
Yes.
Councilman Renziger.
Yes.
Mr. Jim Miller. Mr. Jim Miller, what's your vote? I think his video has frozen. Okay, I'm going to go to the chair. Chair votes yes.
Mr. Miller is back.
Mr.
I'll
Miller,
vote-
what's your vote?
I'll vote yes.
Okay. So we have 7 votes in the affirmative and none in the negative. And so the Happy Grace Planning Commission hereby approves the site plan as presented for parcel N. Thank you all very much. And
Mr. Ford, if I may share a few comments real quick.
yes,
Okay, so as per typical, I will issue an approval letter that reiterates the conditions found in my staff report. per the approval of the Planning Commission. I'd like to try to get them out as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, Mr. Horowitz, I have to be out tomorrow and potentially Wednesday. I'll do everything in my power to get that to you quickly, and you'll have to countersign that letter within 45 days and return it to me acknowledging your acceptance of those conditions.
Thank you.
So-
I'm gonna take about a 20-second break here. Excuse me. I'll be right back.
No problem.
I had a furnace that just came on.
So I will do my best to get that out to you. Best case scenario, I might be able to get something to you by the end of the day tomorrow, but I will be largely unavailable for most of the day. But hopefully Wednesday and at the latest Thursday, I will get that to you. However, you see what the conditions are and you can start moving forward, and your consultants, I'm sure they are already starting to move forward with preparing those detailed engineering plans. So we look forward to working with you to move this project forward, and we'll be working with you closely. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Sure. And you're free to leave whenever you want.
Okay.
Well, I forgot to mute my furnace, which is right behind the magic curtain. Okay, is that it, Mr. Graham?
Yes, sir. I will say a few words before you're ready to introduce parcel F.
That's right. We're going to go there next, and so you're on again.
All right, thank you, sir. So before we get started with parcel F, we're going to go ahead and let all of the participants from the community in. They will remain muted until such time that we get to the public comment portion of the meeting. And then we will let you in individually. Bear with us, please be patient as we do that. And we ask that you give your name and address for the record, and then speak your comments, and then we will answer them, or a consultant will answer them. And so I just request your patience. You can continue to watch on YouTube while we're doing the Zoom meeting, and then participate when we call on you. If there is anybody out there that is watching on YouTube that would like to participate in the Zoom meeting by becoming a participant, you can still send me an email, and I will add you to the participant list and send you the Zoom link. And that's all I have at this time for the protocols for parcel F. Mr. Ford, if you want me to continue with the introduction of the plan, unless you want to introduce it first.
Let's just go ahead with your part.
Okay, bear with me just a second as I pull up that staff report as well for parcel F. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ford. So the project is for a subdivision and site plan for parcel F. As I've been doing previously, the subdivision and site plans have been combined into one plan. And for future reference, with the changes to the subdivision regulations and site plan ordinance that was just passed, in the future, we won't have to technically approve two separate plans. It'll just be a preliminary subdivision plan. This project is located on the west side of Blenheim Farm Lane, north of Argonne Road, which is in the Fields of Rockland community adjacent to this site. As with the rest of Bully Rock, or the majority of the rest of Bully Rock, it is also zoned R residential district, just like the previous case. And this project is for the review of 102 single-family residential lots within parcel F of Bully Rock. And you should have a copy of the site plan that I dropped off to you today that shows that subdivision. The existing land use is parcel F was part of the golf course and remains a part of the golf course. There's obviously the golf course with the driving, the tee boxes, and the fairways and all of that is currently there. Outside of those areas, there's undeveloped areas that will be part of parcel F where construction will occur. And those areas are partially forested, some of it open, some of it somewhat overgrown. And the topography of those areas is generally rolling, as you would expect in this area, from flat to gently sloping with some steep slope areas, I believe right in the center of the site. And Gashies Creek, which is a major tributary, also traverses the golf course. And there is a 100-year floodplain and also non-tidal wetlands associated with Gashies Creek. And any disturbance to those areas will require that the applicant get all necessary permits from the Maryland Department of the Environment and or the Army Corps of Engineers. Parcel F originally received approval from the Planning Commission in 2010. That site plan is very similar to the site plan and subdivision plan that is being reviewed now. Not much change from that original plan. I'll let the consultant address if there has been any significant changes, but there are none that I'm aware of. So there has been discussion with citizens in the fields of Rock Glen that have some concerns over the forest retention areas that were previously shown on the forest conservation plan and recorded in forest retention easements on plats. The forest retention area can be modified, and the applicant is proposing to modify those forest conservation areas based upon a previously approved revised forest conservation plan. And then the plats that are recorded for this subdivision will require that those new forest retention easements be shown in accordance with the forest conservation plan that's been approved. Those need to be shown on that plat and recorded in the land records. The utilities to serve this property will be city water and sewer, which I believe is coming up from 40 underneath the railroad tracks to serve this site. A new road will be constructed that will intersect with Blenheim Farm Lane to provide access to the 102 single-family homes that are proposed as part of this project. And again, I have offered recommendations and my recommendation and suggested conditions. I won't go through all those again. Again, many of them are boilerplate standard kind of comments. And the department recommends approval of the subdivision and site plans subject to the conditions I have noted in my staff report. And that is just a brief overview of this single-family residential subdivision. If there's any questions you have, I'm happy to answer them, or the consultant may be able to answer some of your questions. And that's all I have at this time. Again, we support the approval subject to the conditions noted in my staff report. Thank you, Mr. Ford.
Thank you, Mr. Grimm. Anyone on the commission have any questions of Mr. Grimm at this point? Okay, hearing none. I'll go to the applicant and the applicant's representatives. Who would like to speak first?
Hello, this is Taylor Becker, a registered landscape architect with Morrison Ritchie Associates. I'm here with James Kiefer, who is also a registered landscape architect, and an associate, Frank Hirsch, president, and Jeff Matai, who is a registered engineer and associate.
Thank you. As each of you takes turns speaking, if you would just give us your name again and your address, please.
Sure. The address for Morrison Ritchie Associates is 3445 Suite A, Box Hill Corporate Center Drive. And that is in Abingdon, Maryland. The zip is 21009. And the only thing that I need to add to what Shane, the summary, did a great job summarizing the project for Parcel F, is that Parcel F was a part of the concept plan for the Bully Rock development that was approved in 2003 by the Planning Commission. So other than that, everything that I had noted that was going to go over, Shane covered. So at this point.
And the previously approved plan was similar to what was approved in 2010.
Sorry, the plan that was approved back in 2010, not much has changed. It's very similar in what we're presenting today. And at this point, I can turn it back over to you, Mr. Ford.
All right, anyone else on the applicant's team? Mr. Ward, do you have anything that you want to say at this point? We can always come back to any of you.
No, I think they presented it well, and I'm just here to address any comments or questions.
Okay. Then I will go to the commissioners. Any questions from anyone on the Planning Commission at this point? Okay. Just to give you a little more update, I was one of several participants from the city that met with Mr. Ward back in October to discuss this this application, and we had a number of concerns and to discuss in that meeting, and some of which have been more or less addressed, I think, to the satisfaction of the city. And I think there are some questions that are still hanging out there. I sat down this afternoon and made a list of what I consider parcel F considerations. What I mean by consideration is things to think about in making the decision that we're being asked to make. This is a very unusual situation. Even though it had gone through the Planning Commission some 10 years ago. And I'll just go down this list of things that I think we really should give serious thought towards. Number one, this is the first of 3 development parcels that will require sole direct access to the lower Blenheim Farm Lane, which is exclusively golf course property. I've sort of divided between upper Blenheim Farm Lane and lower, and the division is at the golf course clubhouse. In other words, when you come into the lower section, you're coming on to what we might call golf course property. The other 2 parcels are parcel G and H, and they are yet to be developed. We can call on Mr. Graham if you want to get more information about how big they're going to be, how many units, and so forth, if they're developed as currently proposed. Now, Blenheim Farm Lane, the lower part of the lane, has 2 means of access. The 1-lane underpass to Route 40 and a gated entrance through the upper Bully Rock neighborhoods via what I call upper Blenheim Farm Lane. The lower Blenheim Farm Lane through the golf course is not constructed sufficiently to bear the proposed daily level of residential traffic, even with this proposed parcel, much less the other 2. Residents in parcels F, G, and H would be protected by gated checkpoints from above, that is, from the direction of Chapel Road, but not from Route 40. And that creates an interesting situation of what you might call gate control. You're either inside or outside the gate system. The underpass to Route 40 is a very narrow and tightly curved single lane with a 9'2" height restriction controlled by one-way signal lights. I hope each of the commissioners had a chance. I sent you all an email back into the last week. I hope you had a chance to visit the site and just get a feel for what we're dealing with there. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand whether you did or didn't, but I'm just saying I hope you had that opportunity. The underpass is subject to occasional flooding from the creek that shares it with the lane. During those times, vehicular passage is prevented. The underpass cannot accommodate fire, rescue, and ambulance equipment, or mail and delivery vehicles, or school buses. A special piece of fire equipment would need to be acquired for that purpose and stationed as closely as possible to this location, which would, I suppose, would be the Revolution Street Firehouse. There's no available width through the underpass to accommodate a pedestrian walkway, forcing pedestrians to cross unguarded railroad tracks, essentially as trespassers of the CSX property. Now, keep in mind that Route 40 there's some commercial places on 40 that on the side of the CSX side of Route 40, it's all pretty much medical offices and insurance office and stuff like that that I would not characterize as retail. I would certainly not characterize as the type of facilities that would attract young people. But when you cross the highway, there's stuff over there that perhaps would be more attractive. There's a burger joint that's closed down right now, a vape shop, different things like that that are over there. The steel beam encased concrete slab railroad overpass is, in my opinion, is in an advanced state of deterioration, with heavy corrosion and missing chunks of concrete directly above the lane. And one has to wonder, when the concrete fell out of there, it obviously fell onto the lane. And that, to me, is a concern going forward. The overpass will, sometime in the near future, will require replacement, which may follow an emergency condemnation and lengthy closure of all access to Route 40. It's an overpass that's in great need of repair, and I as a construction professional myself, I find it hard to figure out how they can repair it without either lowering the clearance even more, or closing it entirely, or replacing it. A near perfect alignment exists for a permanent grade crossing through the middle of the existing commercial center, exactly where the past and future construction crossing did and would occur. If you read Mr. Grimm's staff report, it includes the requirement for construction, a temporary crossing for construction. CSX has intentionally dug out that crossing to make it impassable, leaving the existing paved construction use lane interrupted on both sides. That's an asphalt lane. It's sitting there in fairly good condition, but when it gets to the tracks, it's completely cut apart. There is reportedly a private agreement between the golf course, Bully Rock, and the commercial center to not allow an at-grade crossing. That's a private agreement. It is not an agreement, to my understanding, that was sanctioned by the Planning Commission or the City of Havre de Grace. The city has the power to override this private agreement by the public taking of a short and straight right away from Route 40 to the foot of Blenheim Farm Lane over the tracks as a dedicated city street under the justifications of public safety, an unreliable underpass situation, and the need for a second access to a massive residential area that meets normal road standards. And that's my opinion. City attorney might disagree with me. I don't know, but I know that jurisdictions can make public takings if they've got a justified reason for doing it, for right of way. The long-term future of the golf course must be considered when we think about this, particularly with regard to an alternative permitted uses of this land and the traffic that such uses could generate. It's my understanding that, and Mr. Grimm can enlighten you more on this, that golf course is what's basically is committed open space that was required when they originally developed Bully Rock, and it has to, virtually all of it has to remain open space. But open space doesn't necessarily mean that it goes back to nothing but woods, because obviously it's a golf course now. So that's what I would call it's an open space, but it's also a use, and it's an occupancy. A temporary at-grade crossing for construction vehicles should be expected to exist for as long as it would take to gradually build out all three subdivisions, and that could take years. And it should, in my view, therefore should be gated and controlled as any other crossing for safety. This should be little different from a permanent crossing unless during all those years of construction that crossing was manned by a railroad employee every single workday. I just can't imagine that the railroad is going to allow construction traffic all day, every day to run back and forth across a grade crossing that has no safety control system. Those are my observations, and those are my concerns. Now I'll open it back up to discussions, questions from the commission first, and then if the applicant's team would like to respond to that stuff, to those remarks. Yes, Mr. Hartenstein.
Well, of course, following as a resident of Havergy Race, I use that underpass usually more than once a day. You didn't mention the deteriorating road surface condition. I do think that I have never seen the flooding overtop the road surface. However, within the past 10 days, a car has ridden up on the curbing and ended up with its part of the vehicle in the creek. I've seen that on more than one occasion. It's the light helped, but it is an inconvenience, and it is not particularly attractive. You may note, if you visited it in the last couple of days, construction vehicles get down there at a fair rate of speed and suddenly discover that they can't get under the underpass. So their land adjacent to the entry is dug up, where a truck had to back up and got stuck in the mud in the adjacent green area, had to use planks to get it out. They left the planks behind. They're still there. But it is a real limitation. And I was unaware that there was an agreement. During the LPGAs, the use of the at-level crossing was fairly common. And I guess I always thought that was a great solution for the community, but I share your concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Hartenstein. Anyone else like to? Yeah, Mr. Jim Miller. Don't forget to unmute. We're not hearing you. There we go.
I would like to hear from the applicant what their plan and what they have done so far to work with the railroad about this crossing. That's not a city problem. That's the developer responsibility, not the taxpayers or the citizens of Haverty Grace to make a road improvement for the developer so he can build more houses in there. This is a private crossing. The one that was taken out was a unimproved crossing that when the B&O Railroad bought the property, and you can go back and look at the deeds, it says they will construct and maintain a suitable crossing over the said railroad for the use of the farm. Now, the farm was the Blenheim farm. It wasn't Bully Rock Golf Course and that other development that's up there. So it's not part of that responsibility. The previous developer up there, Mr. Abel, he created that crossing. He improved a gravel road where the farmer would drive his tractors over. And when the LPGA was going on there, a truck carrying golf cart was broadsided by a train. So the railroad took it out because they didn't approve it in the first place. So I'd like to hear what the developers have done and what they expect done on this.
Well, before we go to the developer, I would like to say that when I was discussing the idea of a taking and of the city creating a short street in there from 40 right over to connect with Blenheim Farm Lane. It was not my intention that the city would pay for it. As any time a developer develops any streets in any subdivision that has not been given the approval to be private roads, those streets become city streets, but the city doesn't pay to build those streets.
Well,
I just want to clear that up.
a similar incident happened on Lewis Lane when that development was put through, and the city ended up putting the whole bill for that, not the developer that built those townhouses on the other side. And I was familiar with this case. I was on the planning commission. I was on the city council at the time when the Bully Rock development was approved. And that's why I think it's important that we hear from the developer before we speculate on what can and can't be done, because he's got a lot of responsibility in there that has to be taken care of. So that's why I want to hear from them before we start speculating.
Let's go there now. Okay.
This is Bob Ward, and I'd like to defer to Mr. Hirsch, who knows the history of the property, our consulting engineer, and the history of the approvals there. Frank?
I think I'm unmuted now.
Yes.
Vonnie, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Just to go back a little bit in the history, when that crossing was created for the deed says the farm, but it's for the land adjacent to it. The at-grade crossing that was used for temporary construction, it was used during the LPGA, that was never sanctioned, it was never deeded, it was not included in any of the deeds. How it ever was established is beyond my knowledge, and I would suggest probably beyond all of us here. The access to the Blenheim Farm was from the very beginning through the underpass or the arch at the stream crossing. They had, it's apparent to me if you look at enough railroad crossings, there was a stream that the railroad had to cross. They had to create a way for the water to get through there, so they dealt with two problems at the same time. They created the road and they created the stream channel through the same culvert or viaduct or whatever you'd like to characterize it. So that's the legal access out to Route 40. As far as the access that goes that would be unrestricted, there's an agreement that the developer will will be responsible for any damage to Blenheim Lane running to the north from Route 40 all the way up to the golf course. That in order to get the public in the golf course, that way under the bridge, under the viaduct, and up to the golf course has to be kept open. We can't gate that off and then deny public access to a public golf course. So with the gating issue is moved. That's why the gate was moved up the hill. We need free access there. So, and we're going to maintain the road all the way up from parcel F to, we'll be responsible to maintain it all the way out to Chapel Road on the north. So as far as the traffic goes, I know that a lot of people see that as a problem. It is, from the perspective of the developers in the past, it's always been a good problem to have. It's the entrance to the golf course. It provides a unique setting and sense of place for the golf course. It is unique in the area. It's probably unique in the country in terms of an entrance to the golf course. It will accommodate traffic. It will accommodate automobile traffic, and we expect it to continue to do so in the future. As far as the pedestrian issue, there's probably less pedestrian risk from an active adult community in Parcel F than there is for any of the other residential communities that line that railroad, the CSX, between Aberdeen and the river. Sure, there's going to be some tendency of pedestrians to move, but this is an adult community, and I think in terms of mitigation of safety hazards, the fact that it's an adult community goes a long way to providing that kind of protection, if you will. So we're really, I know there's some issues there, but I believe we've solved at least the safety issue, but I'll let Mr. Ward speak to that in terms of response time for the fire department. But we expect that Parcel F, there'll be traffic out, just like through the golf course, but in terms of an emergency, trucks, whatever else we're faced with, the traffic will run to the north, next to and go through the gate at the clubhouse up at the golf course. So, Bob, do you want to address any other of that?
Yeah, I mean, we've had discussions with the fire department and EMS regarding safety issues and talks with them. And myself as a developer and my family have committed to providing a particular piece of EMS equipment that the fire chief felt was necessary to adequately serve Parcel F. I can't tell you the exact type, but it was one that's able to fit underneath that railroad pass and carry the equipment he felt was necessary to serve the folks that would be living there.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Anybody else from the development team that wants to add anything? Mr. Grimm, I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
I mentioned that there are 3 parcels that are developable that depend on lower lower Blenheim Farm Lane. And they were this one plus G plus H. Do you have off the top of your head the number of units in those other 2?
I don't have the total number of units off the top of my head, but if Jeff would put up the plan that I sent him, the overall concept plan for Bully Rock, we can take a look at that real quick.
Now, while you're putting that up, Mr. Horwick, you had your hand up.
Jeff, could you zoom into where you have parcels G and H, please? Kind of center them in the middle of the screen. There you go. So, Boney, I apologize. I know you asked me the total number to have that prepared, but I was not able to count those, but we should have it. Jeff, if you could, I'm sorry, if you could go to the spreadsheet side real quick, that'll give me the total numbers that Boney is looking for. The same plan you just had up, not that one. This sale, there you go. If you scroll to the left, there's like a spreadsheet on the side there, and zoom in a little bit on that. So based on the concept plan that was approved for parcel G, it was intended to be single family units and a total of 38, I believe. Yep, 38. And parcel H is proposed as 64 single family lots. And none of those, to my knowledge, were previously approved as far as subdivision plans. They are shown on the concept plan, but I don't believe either one of those were ever actually approved by the Planning Commission. And I'm not sure what the ownership of those parcels is at this time. Mr. Ward may be able to speak more to that. Also, I did want to let you know that what Mr. Ward spoke about with speaking with Chief Hurst of the Susquehanna Hose Company is what I've been told as well. And that in my conversations with the administration and Chief Hurst, that they felt that with the equipment that Mr. Ward would likely contribute and also other equipment that they have available, that their fears or concerns about emergency access, while they weren't completely allayed, they do feel like they do have sufficient equipment to be able to service parcel F should it move forward, which I have all, we intend for it to move forward. So I think that the emergency concerns have been tamped down some, and we feel comfortable that emergency access will be provided. With that being said, one thing I did fail to mention during my initial comments was that since those discussions, we have not updated the staff report, and there is a condition in the staff report that needs to be modified based on the fact that we have come to a reasonable agreement that the equipment that is available to the hose company and to the ambulance corps can service this parcel. So therefore, under my conditions in number 7, under the Department of Planning, we talk about tying an at-grade crossing, reopening of the at-grade crossing to the grading permit. At this time, I would request respectfully from the Planning Commission that in consideration of this request, when you vote in accepting the conditions, I would strongly recommend that that condition be removed, and some other conditions such as the developer shall continue to pursue the reopening of the at-grade access would be sufficient. And just my professional opinion is that given the condition of the railroad crossing, while it's been challenging to get a hold of CSX, it seems as they just do not believe they need to respond to anybody, is that at some point that railroad crossing will have to be redone. I just don't see that it has that much life left in it. I'm not an engineer, but certainly at some point something is going to have to be done. And the city is actively pursuing that with CSX. We did send another letter out. We sent several letters out to the Federal Railroad Administration and CSX requesting their assistance to have some discussions over that access. We continue to do that. Another letter went out, I believe, last week under the mayor's signature with, I believe, all of the council members signed onto that letter asking for a discussion of emergency access to the Bully Rock community. So again, sorry, kind of being long-winded, but I do want to reiterate that I would respectfully request that the commission consider striking number 7 under my conditions and substituting one that says that the applicant shall continue to pursue that access. And that's all I have right now, sir.
Mr. Hartenstein, you got your hand up.
Yeah, whose responsibility is it to, for example, the road is currently pretty badly degraded. Whose responsibility is it to bring that back to some standard? I mean, it's not going to get any better. There's a creek next to it. It's pretty badly degraded.
Warren,
This is Shane. Do you want to take that, or I can? Either one.
I'll start, Mr. Ward, and then you can jump in. Mr. Hartenstein, are you speaking to just the road underneath the bridge or the whole Blenheim Farm Lane?
Well, I know about Blenheim Farm Lane. I'm talking about the road beneath the bridge.
Right. That'll be part of our discussions that we're still trying to get a hold of CSX to discuss. I'm not quite clear, and this is where Bob can jump in. When you're getting right under that underpass, I'm not quite clear who's responsible for the maintenance of that. Clearly, it's not the city because it's a private road. So I don't know if the actual road bed and road surface is the responsibility of CSX to maintain, or if it's been maintained by Bully Rock in the past. I think either Mr. Hirsch or Mr. Ward can potentially speak to that.
Please go ahead, Mr. Ward.
Yep. Frank, can you help me on that one? Because I honestly don't know.
Okay, the CSX owns the fee of its right-of-way, which not only does it run along the tracks, but in the area of the stream and the road underpass, there's an expanded area of right-of-way, which CSX owns. And under the terms of the deed, CSX is responsible to provide continuous access to the land which is now Bully Rock, which was then the Blenheim Farm. If you look, go back and look at the original taking for the railroad right-of-way, it requires the railroad, which is now CSX, to provide the access, which I understand to mean to maintain, to build and maintain it. And if it falls down, keep in mind that they're going to be responsible to provide access not only to parcel F, but the golf course, because the golf course is now a separate parcel there. If they don't maintain it, they're going to landlock the golf course.
And
How can it landlock the golf course when the golf course has access towards Chapel Road?
Are you sure that the golf course has an easement through to go north to Chapel Road?
I am not.
Either I don't believe so, but I am not certain either. And it is the main entrance to the golf course. The Route 40 access to the golf course through the viaduct is the main access. Now, there is an obligation on behalf of the developer to repair any damage to the main part of Blenheim Road that runs up the hill as a result of construction traffic. And that's in a written agreement when Mr. Ward obtained the development parcels from the previous owner. So there's a right to use Blenheim Lane for parcel F, and there's an obligation to maintain it or to return it to reasonable condition as a result of any damage during the construction period.
So I think to clarify what you're saying, it sounds like a minute ago you were saying that it appears that the golf course does not have a formal right-of-way agreement to go up through Bully Rock above it.
Valdi, I would say for now, we don't know whether it does or not, but there's no evidence before the Planning Commission to show that it does.
I'll tell you what my concern
The bottom line is CSX owns the fee for the underpass and a expanded width right-of-way where the road goes through the underpass.
Right, the approaches.
When the approaches, yeah.
Mr. Hartenstein, you have a question again.
Yeah, I this easement for the golf course up to Chapel Road. Of course, I live on, immediately adjacent to Chapel Road and Blenheim Farm Road Lane. I find that surprising. First of all the service vehicles for the golf course enter from Chapel Road. They have to. So in effect, if there's no easement from Chapel Road, the golf course is going to be strangled for any kind of services. It can't get them through the underpass.
I can't say that they have it.
Well, it certainly seems like it would be something worth pursuing.
It sounds like that this issue is open to question at this point.
Mr. Ford?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I didn't know if you could see me with my hand up. I just wanted to let you know that Jeff West, who is the general manager of the Bully Rock Homeowners Association Management Company, has sent me an email because he is viewing this on YouTube. And he sent me an email that did confirm that the golf course does have an easement, and I remember hearing about this some time ago. The golf course does have an easement up through Blenheim Farm Lane north towards Chapel Road.
That's good to hear. I want to correct one impression that I was giving when I went through my long list of concerns. And I talked about all three of the parcels, G, H, and F, absolutely depending on the lower Blenheim Farm Lane. And if you put that plat back up, the overall plat of that whole side of Bully Rock, you'll see that one of those, you can see the three green, if you can slide the plat to the left a little bit, there you go. You can see F down at the bottom right. You can see G halfway up the lower Blenheim Farm Lane, but then you get up higher where you get to H, which is going to supposedly called Canterbury Park. That's actually above the clubhouse. So that little subdivision right there would not so much depend on the lower Blenheim Farm Lane. Is that true? Does everybody agree with that?
Yes.
So the traffic impact primarily would be from the lower two, that's G and F. But we do know that an awful lot of traffic throughout the Blenheim Farm Lane side of Bully Rock is using the Route 40 exit and entrance. They're using it because it's the quickest way to get to Route 40. So we're still going to have a lot of traffic and more traffic than we have now going down through there. The overriding concern that I have in all these points that I was making is that in the near future, the city of Havre de Grace and the residents of Bully Rock are going to realize that that railroad overpass is something that just absolutely is necessary. Sooner or later, it's going to be very necessary to have that thing. And the more development that we allow to occur in there without making any provisions to pay for that and to make it happen, however we have to make it happen, is going to slip away from us. And we're going to be stuck with a bad situation where I think, as I expressed in the city meeting we had, somebody down the road is going to look back and they're going to look at that situation. They're going to say, what on earth were they thinking when they allowed this to happen? And we are the one body in the city of Havre de Grace that's constituted to have a crystal ball. We're supposed to be the ones that look into the crystal ball and plan for the future and look to see what things are going to be like in the future as best we can. I don't know of any other city commission that has that particular charge. I'd like to hear what any of you think. Yes, Mr. Holwick.
Yes, Robert Holwick with Bob Ward Companies. This is for Shane. Shane, parcel F, the plan was approved, and it was extended, but what year did it expire for parcel? Was it 2018? Is when this plan expired?
I don't have that information. I could not find any records of any requests for extensions of parcel F in the information that I have. So I can't even say for certain that after it was approved, if they continually extended it or even asked for one extension.
Yeah, maybe Jeff Mathai might know with MRA.
He would be more likely because he has more history with it than I.
Jeff doesn't have any recollection. It's Frank Hirsch.
Yeah, Frank, just something tells me it was extended and it expired in 18.
I can look into that for you and see if there's anything in our files, and I would ask if if Jeff or James can look in their files, but I don't believe that that's the case, but certainly if you believe it is, I'll look for that.
And we'll look in our files, but we're not in a position to do that during this hearing.
Understood.
Okay, we still need to hear from citizens. Do we, at this stage of this hearing, do we have any other questions from or comments from either the applicants or the commissioners or the department?
From
Okay,
the department.
go ahead.
From the department, sir, we have several people here, 7 people that would like to speak. And a few have sent me comments to be read into the record. So whenever you're ready, I'll start with reading those comments into the record, and then we'll turn it over to invite in citizens. First, we have on the list.
Actually, before you go any further, how are you planning on setting up each person?
Okay, after I get done reading into the record the comments that were emailed to me, then I am working with Adam Ripchinsky, who is managing the meeting along with Jeff, and I will let them know who is next in line to come into the meeting. So first, we're going to start off with Ms. Carrie Cately, and then second will be, although I'm reading his comments into the record, he certainly has an opportunity to speak, Mr. Andy, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but I think it's Surni, and he'll be second on the list if he chooses to speak, because I do have comments to read into the record from him.
All right, go ahead. We'll just proceed. And should I open for questions from commissioners after each person speaks, or should we wait till the end? What do you recommend?
I would suggest you wait until we get through everybody.
Okay.
If there is a question from the citizen when they're speaking that can be addressed, I would just ask that anyone in attendance who feels that they can answer the question should raise their hand, and Mr. Ford, then you could determine how you want to call on them.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Graham.
Okay. Bear with me as I pull up my emails real quick. Okay, the first comments were from Mr. Andy Surni, who is the president of the Fields at Rock Glen HOA Association, and his address is 38 Rock Glen Road, Havre de Grace, Maryland, 21078. Not to confuse things, but I think it's important for the record. The Fields at Rock Glen is in the Havre de Grace zip code, but is not actually in Havre de Grace. It's in Aberdeen. It's always a fun thing to explain to people. But anyways, Mr. Surni's comments start like this. There are several environmental easements that have been established between the Bully Rock Golf Course and homes in the HOA. While it appears that the proposed construction plans do not directly impact those environmentally protected areas, we are concerned that based on current land topography, that changes to grade based on construction may adversely impact those protected areas. And furthermore, it may impact the ability of the GRG land management implementations to deal with the potential of increased runoff. Has the county assessed the impact to those environmental areas and to the current drainage management in place? If not, the GRG Association requests that the City of Havre de Grace ask that Harford County conduct that assessment before any approval is given to proceed with development. Furthermore, we request that the GRG AHOA be given time to conduct our own assessment individually or in cooperation with the county based on information provided at this meeting as to potential impact to retention capacity and drainage. To do so, we, the HOA, will require additional information from the developer, which shows grading plans for each lot and the results of water management assessments for the new development. Should there be an impact, we the affected homeowners and HOA would request that the developer adjust development to mitigate the impact, or that the City of Havre de Grace deny development. Those are Mr. Surni's comments. He is second in line. Actually, I'm going to respond to his comments, and then if it's okay with Ms. Cately, because we're dealing with his comments first, I'll give Mr. Surni the opportunity first to speak. So Adam, if you will actually put Mr. Surni in after I'm done here. But I do want to speak to his comments. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to respond before the meeting today. The county has no jurisdiction over any projects in the city. Specifically with your comments related to stormwater management, the county does not review stormwater management plans. the city and the Director of Public Works review stormwater management plans that have to be prepared in accordance with the stormwater management section of our city code, which meets the minimum requirements of the state stormwater management code, which requires the submission of 3 different plans: a concept plan, an intermediate plan, and the final stormwater management plan. And that plan is designed so that water shall not be directed and any runoff directed to any adjacent properties. I'll defer to the development team if I speak out of turn, but generally the stormwater management code says that any development project shall not discharge waters to adjacent properties greater than what would have been anticipated pre-development. So the Department of Public Works will be looking at those plans and reviewing them based on those requirements in the city code. Grading plans will also be submitted and reviewed by Director of Public Works. The actual sediment and erosion control plan is submitted to the Harford County Soil Conservation District, as the city does not have authority to review and approve those. However, they review them and send comments or their approval back to the city. So then we will issue an approval once all those things are done, and then they can move forward from there. So with that, I think I answered the questions, but if Mr. Surani, hopefully I'm saying his name correctly, would like to speak to the commission or ask any further questions, I would ask that Adam allow him and or Jeff to speak right now.
He is in the meeting and he's able to speak.
Okay.
Should be unmuted.
Okay. Mr. Surani, do you have any additional comments or questions?
Let's see.
Shane, I believe his hand is up. Mr. Cerny. He's waving, but I don't hear anything.
He should be unmuted. It doesn't look like he's muted, so he should be able to speak.
Mr. Cerny, can you please begin your audio? There we go. One more second. All right, looks like you're good to go. But please unmute. Mr. Cerny, can you please begin your video?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Yes, sir.
Okay. So, Mr. Grimm, I appreciate the comments, the answers to the question. Just for the record, last name is Surani. Unless you're Hungarian, and then it's pronounced a little bit different.
All right, looks like you're good to go. But please unmute. Cerny, can you please begin your video?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Yes, sir.
Wait. Okay. So
you may want to turn off your YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube feed is causing a loop. You're about 20 seconds behind, 30 seconds behind on YouTube. So turn that off if you could, please.
Surani. Unless you're Hungarian, and then it's pronounced a little bit different.
All right, looks like you're good to go. But please unmute.
So, have you turned off your YouTube, Mr. Cerny?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Yes, sir.
Okay, YouTube is off.
Okay. Do you have any additional comments or questions?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay.
So listening to the conversation here, do we understand correctly that parcel F is going to be a 55 plus community?
I'll defer to Mr. Ward.
I'm sorry.
The answer to that question, or Shane, do you want to answer it?
No, I defer to you or Mr.
The
Ward.
answer is no. It is a active adult community under the terms of the active adult community ordinance in the Havertide Gray zoning ordinance. There's no 55-year age limit as in that ordinance.
Okay, so there will be families and children, correct?
I would anticipate.
There could be. The requirement is that the homes be architecturally designed to serve active adults. Typically, what that means is the units have to, in many cases, have either elevators or first floor master bedrooms to accommodate the aging population. but any such architectural or limitation would be appropriate. So you might have grandkids staying with active adults. That would be okay. We don't get into the policing of ages in this community.
Okay, next question on my list here. As a retired advanced life support crew chief, I will say that when you consider EMS, and I believe that Mr. Grimm indicated that the developer was going to, it looks like, make a donation to EMS for equipment or something like that. I would remind the commission that that equipment must be maintained and refurbished and replaced. And the replacement rate is actually quite often. So when you consider, the impact to the taxpayers, you need to consider not just, the initial developer paying for the first shot, but you have to consider the impact to the taxpayers for the next 20 years. I do have a question. So on the agreement with CSX, they agreed to provide access to Blenheim Farms, correct? Which probably had specific traffic patterns associated with that access. Well, obviously with the golf course and then adding all of these additional homes, that traffic pattern is inconsistent with that original agreement. Is there any requirement that CSX maintain that crossing, given that the original purpose of the land, which was Blenheim Farms, no longer exists? Over.
There's a substantial amount of history on these railroad right-of-way acquisitions during the late 1800s, and in my research, and as I believe it applies here, the reference to Blenheim Farm, access to Blenheim Farm was a place, not an activity. It was the name of an area of land owned by I'm assuming the Blenheim family then. And in general, there have been no restrictions that the access be limited to, quote, farm use, end quote, unless it's specifically stated in the grant. It's not stated in this grant if you review the land records.
So I guess my concern is considering what I've heard from the council members or the committee members that the access is in, I'll call it sad shape. What's to prevent CSX from saying, we're going to remove that access, fill it in instead of enlarging it or whatever needs to be done to maintain it, and just make it a standard throughway and eliminating the access entirely when it comes down to it?
Well, I don't believe they have the right to unilaterally abandon their obligation to maintain access there. Now, they might suggest something different. They might actually, if that underpass becomes a problem, they might be much more amenable to a at-grade signalized crossing, who knows? But in any event, they are contractually obligated to maintain that access. And in my experience, if it becomes a replacement issue, then it becomes a negotiation.
Yeah, but that negotiation is now done under taxpayer dollars with taxpayer monies to either partially work with CSX to replace it or take the full burden on to replace it. I just remind I think there are a lot of holes in this. It would be really nice if CSX would respond to the township so that we could understand what they interpret their obligations to be and what exactly they intend to do going forward. Because, you know, I think it would be a disaster if, you know, it got that underpass got so bad that they decide, yeah, we're just going to fill it in and we're going to go back to the original land use based agreement on it. And I know we all have our interpretations here in this virtual room, but it's going to come down to lawyers, and it'd be really good to understand which way they're going to move. And then lastly, and I'm sure you're glad to hear this, I believe I heard Mr. Grimm talk about changes to the environmental easements and a revised plan in place. Sir, are you referring to the easements that are north of the proposed Plot F development area? And what are those changes exactly? Over.
Well, the overall Bully Rock project was required to submit what's called a forest conservation plan, which is required of all jurisdictions in the state of Maryland. They have to comply with the minimum requirements of the Maryland Forest Conservation Act. And the city of Havre de Grace has our own forest conservation ordinance and chapter in the city code that meets those minimum requirements. So any developer that submits a project in the state of Maryland has to go through the process of submitting plans for what are called forest stand delineations, which are the first plans that come in that detail all the environmental resources on a site. And then from there, they develop a forest conservation plan, which shows all the forest resources that may or may not be on site and what is being proposed to be removed as part of that development plan. When they do that, they determine what areas will be retained if there is forest that's being retained. And those retained areas are placed into what's called a forest retention easement, and they're required to be recorded on a final plat in the Harford County Land Records, which was done for various parcels and has been done and continue to be done for various parcels throughout the Bully Rock development. However, with large developments like Bully Rock of several hundred acres or even close to 1,000 acres or more that have a lifespan of anywhere from 10 to 20 years to build out, it is not uncommon for a developer, because of changing market conditions, changing desires and unit types and things like that, that they desire to change their project, which means they may have to change forest retention easements. As long as they still meet the minimum requirements of the Forest Conservation Act, they can take those easements and remove those easements. Now, they have to update their forest conservation plan and show that the numbers still work and they comply with everything else. And in some instances, that may make them have to require additional plantings. In other instances, they may still have enough forest that they're not at their break-even point yet, and they don't have to replant anything, because the Forest Conservation Act does allow a certain amount of clearing. So I know that's kind of a detailed response, but I'm happy to, at any time, I'm not available tomorrow, but I'm happy Wednesday or the rest of the week, if you want to talk more about, give me a call and talk more about forest conservation, I'm happy to discuss with you.
Yes, sir. I think maybe we went down the wrong path. I'm referring to the environmental easements that are located in the city of Aberdeen that border the construction area.
I'm not sure what your question is. I mean, if there are environmental areas that are not on the site of parcel F, on the parcels owned by Mr. Ward, then to my knowledge, there are no proposed impacts to those areas.
So that was when my original questions, that was the question, is whether or not an assessment had been done to adjacent areas that do have environmental easements, which are impacted by drainage from the proposed development in section F. But going to the last question I just asked, and to end my input here, I'm assuming that when you were referring to changing environmental easements, you were not referring to those easements that are currently located in the city of Aberdeen. Is that correct, sir?
My apologies, I had misunderstood what you were talking about, because a lot of the discussion today is circled around forest retention easements.
Okay, so my last comment is correct. Is that yes? Is that a yes?
Yes,
Thank you,
correct.
sir. And I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Grimm, who's next?
Well, first I'm gonna continue to go through the comments that I've received until we get through those. It's only a couple more, and then we'll go to Ms. Kately. So let's see. Next, I have comments from Ms. Rachel Bogner, which are questions, which I will read into the record. However, I will let you know that I did respond to her by email with answers to her questions. And what she would like on the record is question 1, what is being done to allow or enhance or support safety requirements regarding the ability for either large vehicles or emergency vehicle entry into the proposed property? Number 2, the proposed agreement of 20 years ago specified green space. That was under a different code. Will the new proposed building support that spirit of green space? 3, will trees be torn down at the southern end of the property near my property, and will any be replaced? 4, what will be done to prevent potential flooding coming from the new developed area to my area? Will grading ensure that potential increased flooding does not come to my property? And number 5, is there any plan to create a new road or thoroughfare or anything resembling that at some point on the proposed property? Now, again, I did respond prior to the meeting to Ms. Bogner, but we're going to give her an opportunity to speak if she's still in the room in a little bit. And I think we did answer most of her questions also during this meeting so far. Next, I have Christopher Skubik. Hopefully I'm saying that well as well. I did speak with Mr. Skubik on the phone this afternoon and address some of his questions. He starts with, since the property line in question borders the town of Aberdeen, I'm wondering what type of coordination the town of Havre de Grace has had with your counterpart at Aberdeen. Who is your Aberdeen counterpart? I did let him know that we did send a plan to Phyllis Grover, Director of Planning and Economic Development at Aberdeen, and she had no comments on the plan. Second, his comment is, according to the map I have, I see an environmental easement between my property and the Bully Rock property. According to my neighbor, he said that you told him that there will be no easement between the new development and my house. What is that, and who has control over that easement? I believe that's the easement that Mr. Sorny is referring to in the Rockland development that is not being impacted specifically by the Bully Rock easements. Lastly, he writes, I'm also curious about the timeline for all of the Bully Rock development. I noticed that there's a phase 1, 2, 3, as well as this phase F. I'm assuming that the first 3 phases will need to be completed prior to starting parcel F. He refers to it as phase F. If that's the case, when would you anticipate phase F actually starting should things proceed as planned? I will let Mr. Ward speak to his timing, but I would like to get through the rest of these comments real quick. Ms. Kathy Heimberger also had several questions and comments that I did also respond to her by email as well. She is in the meeting and we'll give her an opportunity to speak as well. First, she writes, some of my neighbors are not on Facebook and unaware that the meeting will be virtual. The city does apologize for that. Unfortunately, we had to alter our protocols during the pandemic. And I believe everybody that wanted to get on did get on. And I'm open to comments and questions moving forward, even after this meeting. Secondly, she writes, the environmental impact that comes from water running off into our neighborhood, settling ponds, or on the other end of our road, potentially draining into individual properties. 3, there are signs behind some of the homes here indicating forest retention areas. From what I understand, a forest retention area that can be moved as long as a small percentage is left. Is this true? Will there be a tree barrier left between the developments? I hope so, because according to the proposed drawing, the property's back right up to ours. I would think that would impact our property values, not to mention the wildlife that will be impacted. 4, can you address the 100-year floodplain? Again, I did address all those questions with Ms. Heimberger. And next is from Mr. Kenneth Bell, who is at 426 Majestic Prince Circle. I have not responded to his questions at this time, and I do plan to do so as soon as possible. Is parcel F considered part of the Bully Rock residences contained within the gates of Bully Rock? Will large construction vehicles access parcel F through Bully Rock gates? Who pays for damage incurred by construction activity of the development of Bully Rock roads or property? Will the new development have its own gate? Who pays for it? Will there be a need to reconfigure the traffic signal for road access to and from parcel F? How will construction vehicles access the site, Blenheim Farm or other? How large are the lots frontage width? Single-family homes, how close are the houses? What are expected home pricings? 102 homes, how many additional expected vehicles accessing Blenheim Road? And then we have, I think, bear with me just a second. I believe that is all the comments that I received via email. I would respectfully ask Mr. Ward if he could respond to a couple of the questions, or the consultant, that specifically the phasing of parcel F, and if there is any phasing that is planned. And Mr. Skubik's last question is, when do you anticipate phase F or parcel F moving forward?
So I can't remember if I'm mute or not. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is Bob Ward. Parcel F, depending on the Planning Commission's decision, would reach final engineering sometime towards the mid part of next year, 2021. And the development work would start sometime right after that. So the answer is late 2021 for the start. I wouldn't anticipate homes being started until 2022 there. And if the question is to the overall Bully Rock, what I purchased there was approximately 600 homes. And we think that's going to be about a 10-year build out from the beginning of 2020. So 2030 approximate build out, but you never know how the economy is going to go, but that's my best estimate.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Then I just wanted to see if you could respond to, bear with me just a second. Mr. Bell's questions, some of them have been asked, but construction traffic you are proposing would come from Chapel Road unless it can access underneath the underpass?
Yeah, unless we find an alternate, it will come down Blenheim Road. And the second part of that question is any damage from construction vehicles would be the developer's responsibility to repair.
Will there be a separate gate for this community?
No.
Will there be a need to reconfigure the traffic signal for access to parcel F? I'm assuming he means the one at the underpass.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. That's more of engineering and traffic question. If there is, that would be the developer's responsibility.
Some of these technical questions about distances and all, I will respond directly to Mr. Bell via email. Do you have an idea on expected home pricings?
Gosh, that's hard to say, but from the 500,000 and up would be my best estimate.
Okay. Is parcel F considered part of the Bully Rock residences contained within the gates of Bully Rock?
So it's my understanding this parcel, it will be part of Bully Rock, but it will have the option of being like some of the outside the gate parcels that currently exist, where it would be a partial contributor to the association and partial member and may not be a full member, or it has the option of coming in as a full member. And there's been no determination there yet.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ward. I apologize for coming back to the questions, but I wanted to get them read into the record first. So I'm kind of doing a hybrid of answering them at the same time and also kind of going through them, but we are through everything that I had to read through. So with that, Mr. Ford, I think we would like to ask Miss Carrie Cately if she is prepared now to speak to the commission.
Hi, I am.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Hi.
What is your name and address?
Hi, Carrie Cately, and we are at 2 Rockland Road in Havre de Grace, the Greens at Rockland. Hello, good evening, everybody. First, happy holidays. And I want to thank Mr. Grimm for his quick replies to my many phone calls and emails, as well as his transparency, and most of all, the patience that he showed me with my many, many questions. So because he answered so many of them over the past couple months, I only have a couple tonight. One of my main concerns, as it seems with the others on Rockland Road, is privacy. I saw on the plans that it seems about 20 feet are given between our backyards and the new backyards of the new homes. With that in mind, I would just, I guess, like to request maybe, or put the bug in your ear about how lovely maybe a tree line back there would be behind the new homes, or big shrub, something, you know, to add privacy, especially if any of those trees are going to be taken down. Just something to think about. And then the other question that just came to me this evening, because talking about the traffic on Blenheim Lane, is, has anyone considered the potential issues and traffic concerns of those that will be coming out to Route 40, and mainly the ones that cross Route 40? I know that there's been a lot of concerns coming out of Greenway Farms there, and not as many concerns, I guess, you know, now because there's not as much traffic from Blenheim. But I wanted to know if any thoughts have been given to that.
Sure. Thank you for your kind words, Ms. Cately. Appreciate it, and I appreciate you taking part in this meeting. And so with respect to traffic and at Route 40, prior to Mr. Ward's purchase of the property, he and also the city of Havre de Grace reached out to the State Highway Administration to discuss the status of improvements that were required for the overall Bully Rock project. In the very beginning of the project, there was a traffic study done that dictated what specific improvements would need to be done for Bully Rock. I apologize, I don't have all those in my head right now, but the last remaining Bully Rock improvement is up at Bully Rock Parkway and Route 155. To the best of my knowledge, based on my receiving of letters from SHA, they made no further comments about any impacts to traffic at Route 40. And they are certainly aware of all of the development that's been proposed in Bully Rock. So they did not seem to have any concern or raise any objections or state that any additional studies needed to be done.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Grimm,
That's
thank
it
you
for
very
me.
much, Ms. Cately.
Thank you.
Mr. Grimm, who would you like to introduce next?
If Mr. Skubik, Chris Skubik, is available, let's call him. All of the development that's been proposed in Bully Rock. So is
got his YouTube on.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Hi, Mr. Skubik, are you there?
Okay, Mr. Grimm, thank you very much, Ms. Cately.
Can you turn off? Can you turn off your YouTube stream, Mr. Skubik, so we can hear you?
Introduce next.
Chris Skubik is available. It's been proposed in Bully Rock. So,
Hello? Got his YouTube on.
Okay.
Hello?
Great, thank you.
Hi, Mr. Skubik, are you there?
Can
Thank you very much, Ms. Cately.
Can you turn off? Can you turn off your YouTube? Can you please turn off your YouTube, Mr. Skubik? So,
like that? Yes.
Okay,
I
now
can't hear myself. I can't hear anybody.
This is only for the chair. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Yes, Mr. Skubik, this is the chair. Can you hear me?
Can you turn off? Can you please turn off?
Okay, I turned my YouTube off volume, but I can't hear anybody.
Can you please just exit out of YouTube? You're probably turning the volume down to your whole computer.
I can only hear when I'm through the YouTube.
Yeah, the YouTube is 20 seconds behind, so there's no way to watch YouTube and participate live. You'll have to turn the YouTube feed off.
Okay, at this time, can we mute Mr. Skubic and see if he can get his technical?
Yeah, he's muted now.
And then we'll move on to the next person. And I'd like to move on to Samantha Price, if she's available and willing to speak.
She's unmuted.
Mrs. Price, how are you?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, and if you just give us your name and your address, please.
Hi, my name is Samantha Price. Good evening. I live at 1116 Melissa Court. My question pretty much has been answered, but I will follow up again just for everybody else that is online. I just wanted to know if there was a site plan or a map that shows how much of the forest conservation will be disturbed near the communities on the other side, where there are the Fields of Rockland and the Greens of Rockland. I'm currently in the Fields of Rockland community, and I actually am the neighbor of Miss Carrie Cately. So I just wanted to kind of get a better understanding of how much of the wood line is going to be disturbed. And I think that was answered. So I appreciate your time.
Yes,
Thank
Ms.
you very
Price.
much.
Ms. Price, as I stated to you in the chat, I will provide you with a copy of that forest conservation plan that gives you a better visual of where the forest retention easements are. I'm happy to do that. I may not be able to get you that until Wednesday, but I definitely will provide that to you. You're on my list to return a message.
Okay. I just also wanted to mention that if there's any way that you guys can, figure out how to maybe put up some more trees or some taller shrubs or bushes that would allow some more privacy than what it seems like there's only going to be 20 feet allotted for, that would be very much appreciated.
We'll take that into account, Mrs. Price. Anything else?
Nope, that is all. Thank you very much.
Okay. I see.
Ms. Bogner, Rachel Bogner looks
yeah,
very
there.
excited to participate. So let's make her next.
Okay.
Hi, good evening. I'm sorry, I can't find the thing that says to raise my hand. I'm also Carrie's neighbor on the other side. She's number 2, I'm number 4, and down the street from a couple other people. So also,
Could you give us your address, please?
oh, I'm number 4, Rockland Road.
Got it. Uh-huh.
So one of the questions I had was what Ms. Price brought up and what Carrie brought up. You know, there are lots of deer that run through the backyard. My 2 dogs are in the backyard, and I also have the wondering and the concern exactly how close the new properties were going to be. I believe you answered one of my other questions. The construction could start I wasn't sure if you said 21 or 22 about the construction of that parcel.
I believe Mr. Ward said that the subdivision itself would start in 21, hopefully, and the house starts would be in 22.
All right, and
That's correct, yeah.
okay, the forest plan, what you were talking about giving to Carrie, Ms. Price, could you kindly send that to me as well? I'd be grateful for that. And I also want to thank Mr. Grimm for his being very responsive to the questions that I emailed him. I do appreciate that. I know that you're very busy, and taking the time to respond so quickly, I am grateful for that.
No problem. And I will, just like with Ms. Price, I will get you a copy of that. And then once you get a copy of it, you can feel free to call me or email me at any time, and we can go over it and answer any of your questions.
Thank you. Roughly the lot sizes in that area are, I believe we discussed that they appear to be between 1/4 to 1/3 of an acre. Can you verify that or clarify for me?
Yes, they are roughly 1/3 to 1/4 of an acre. They vary in size. If I'm misspeaking, unfortunately, I have the wrong parcel in front of me right now. But Mr. Kiefer or Mr. Mathai may be able to answer that as well.
Give us just a second to look at the plan.
Sure.
My apologies. I still have the
No.
previous
It's all
parcel.
good. It's all good.
They're a fifth.
A fifth of an acre.
They're about a fifth of an acre on average.
About a fifth of an acre.
Okay. All right. I believe you've answered all my questions, so I want to thank you for the opportunity to chime in.
No problem.
Thank you very much. Mr. Grimm, anybody? Who's next?
Yes, it looks like I have two Kathys here, and I believe they're the same person, so we'll try them both. But, well, I'm looking for Kathy Heimberger. If she could go ahead and unmute. There she is.
Hi, Mr. Grimm.
Is this Ms. Heimberger?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I also have another person signed in as Kathy, so I don't know if that's a
It
separate.
might be a fluke, yeah.
Okay.
My husband Eric and I live at 22 Rock Glen Road. And as the other ladies have said, we also are concerned about the tree line in the back. If at all possible, we just would really like to ask that some of the tree line be left. The other thing that I have a concern about was our settling ponds that our HOA is responsible for, but you kind of went over some of that earlier with the environmental study and stuff. So we'll just kind of keep an eye on that. But if you could also send us that conservation map that you offered out, we'd really appreciate it.
That's not a problem. I'll send out to all of you, and then you can all get back to me with any questions you have.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Grimm.
Sure. I see in the chat on the side that Mr. Skubik, the gentleman that was having some issues with his stream and trying to communicate with us, he only had one more comment, and his comment was, my only additional question was going to be to push back on the timeline of next year, given there are so many questions dealing with the CSX underpass. So Mr. Skubik, it appears, is just requesting that the plan be delayed until questions regarding CSX that were brought up are resolved. And that was all that he had. And then I'm going to call on, it looks like this person left the meeting, but I did receive a request from someone named Miranda Wainwright Chavez. I do not see her on the line now, but if she is available, please let us know that you're here. Okay. All right, I don't see her, so I'm going to call on, like I said, there's someone else here that is not Ms. Heimberger, but it says Kathy, and they appear to be unmuted. So if this is someone other than Ms. Heimberger, please speak. And I believe Ms. Heimberger's husband was going to speak, but I think she spoke on his behalf. So if Ms. Heimberger is still on here, please let me know if your husband wants to speak as well. But at this point, I believe we're through all of those individuals who requested to speak to the commission.
Well, thank you, Mr. Grimm.
And Mr. Ford, if I may, if we could just take a brief 2 or 3 minute recess.
With no objection. What are we talking? 2 minutes? 3 minutes?
Yeah, 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay.
That's
Go
all.
back in just a few minutes. We'll just recess the meeting.
Great, thank you.
I'm just going to mute the mics and keep everything else live.
Thanks.
All right, sir, I'm back and ready to go. Thank you for the brief recess.
Thank you very much. As everybody else, well, I guess we'll reconvene the meeting here. Can I take you back, Mr. Grimm, to the item number 7 in your staff report? And you were recommending that we, if we move to approve this project, that we delete number 7. Is that correct?
Yes, it's my recommendation that you delete that and insert something else. I mean, you don't have to insert anything else, but I would suggest that just a blanket condition that the developer continue pursuing reopening of the at-grade crossing. But that's up.
Okay, well, the only thing about that is that it basically is meaningless.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it doesn't require the developer to do anything.
Bonnie's Harry.
I'm sorry, who's got the hand up?
It's Harry.
I'm looking.
Harry Miller.
Yes.
Hey,
Harry.
so I wanted to pursue that. That was my question for Mr. Grimm. You know, I was reading, of course, all the recommendations and everything. And, you know, I understood number 7. And, you know, I was wondering why you wanted to delete it. Is it because CSX has been non-responsive, or because it's hard, or, you know, what's the deal with that? I mean, you know.
No, I can answer that for you. So when I issued my staff report, we had significant concerns about emergency access and safety. We've had a number of meetings with the developer, their consultant, also with the Susquehanna Hose Company. And I think after all of those meetings and discussions, we all came to the opinion that based on the equipment that Susquehanna Hose Company has available to them, and the fact that the ambulance corps is almost never going to come in that way because they're located on 155, they're always going to come from the north. So it's not an ambulance access issue. But we felt comfortable after our discussions that while we would prefer that there be an at-grade crossing, we feel comfortable that it is safe and that emergency response can respond safely in a reasonable amount of time to any type of emergency at that location. So that's why I feel confident now that you can remove that recommendation and or substitute something else in there that the Planning Commission feels appropriate. But I can tell you that we are acting. This is not going away, and we are actively pursuing this and sending letters. And I think our next thing to do will be potentially to reach out to a congressman or somebody at that level who might be able to get CSX to answer their phones.
So, and so is it in our purview to be able to leave this recommendation?
It's in your purview as Planning Commission members to approve site plans and put reasonable conditions on projects and developers. What my conditions are merely recommendations to the Planning Commission. And you know this, you're under no obligation. You're not bound to accept any of my conditions. Even if you said we're not accepting any of the conditions, a lot of them would still apply anyways, just because they're standard development review things that have to happen anyways. But hopefully that explains my position on my staff report.
Oh no, you've done a really good job as usual. If we left it, and I guess this is for Mr. Ward, is that kind of a deal killer right now? You're muted.
Mr. Ward, you're muted.
No, it says I'm not muted. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, there, I mean, that's something I can strive for, but there's no way I can sit here today and tell you that's something I can absolutely do. I can't.
Okay, but fair enough. I mean, I think, just personally, I think everybody can see how, if that became a reality, that would benefit your development and the city and everybody. I mean, but I understand dealing with certain entities is very tedious. So those are all my comments at this time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Harry, if I may, real quick, I'm not sure in your professional life if you've had to deal with CSX or the railroad, but they are kind of their own beasts, their own government, and they're very insulated. And I can tell you that I have sent multiple emails through legitimate sources on their website that say, if you have comments, questions, concerns, send them to this. I've made phone calls. We've written letters. So on behalf of Mr. Ward, I'd say that Mr. Ward has put just as much effort, and his team have put just as much effort into it. But and this is an issue that, regardless of parcel F, there's still going to be this issue.
Sure.
So, but I did want to say that I feel comfortable as a planner and in my capacity that I wish there was an at-grade crossing, but I feel comfortable with emergency access and services that they'll be able to readily service this without any issues.
Oh, yes, I deal with railroads, and I find that they're really responsive when they want something.
That's true. Very true. Very true. Or when there's an overturned train or something.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. I think I'd like to weigh in again. This crossing to me is just about everything about this whole case, and the next segment of development that will come after that. The crossing should have been negotiated and installed years ago. At that time, the Bully Rock residential focus was towards Chapel Road, and the part that we're dealing with now was just a golf course. Two radically different things, two radically different levels of traffic. When people come to play golf, they can just as easily come off of 95 and go in at the top. But when you have people living in this place and they're going to work in every direction, and most of their restaurants, most of their services are down off of Route 40, not up on Chapel Road. So folks are going to tend to want to gravitate towards Route 40 to get where they're going, both for work and for play. As this entire project, let's just take the whole Bully Rock project, both parts, and the golf course, everything taken together. As it becomes more and more developed without a crossing, the chances of ever seeing a crossing slips further and further away, because there's less and less incentive to pay for it, no matter what the problems are. There's right now we're talking about a developer kicking in funds to pay for an emergency vehicle. And by golly, if those same funds could go towards the crossing, that would be far more beneficial, and it would certainly answer all the conceivable needs of the future. If we approve this thing tonight, I think that we're driving a stake in the heart of there ever being a crossing. I mean, it'll be the last straw. What would be the incentive to put a crossing in after tonight is my point. On the other hand, I was once a developer myself, and I understand clearly Mr. Ward's situation. He's bought this parcel in good faith, and it essentially was, even though it required a renewal type approval that we're being asked to do tonight, this parcel has been on the sheet for many years. You know, it's not like something coming out of the blue like raw land. And so I really do understand his situation. I understand the conundrum of having to try to move forward with a property like this, and at the same time trying to deal with the railroad that won't even answer your phone calls. I personally feel like that we haven't given it all we should. We haven't tried hard enough to get where we want to go. Mr. Miller, Jim Miller, you have your hand up. Go ahead. Yeah, there you go.
I think we need to put a motion on the floor so we can discuss this. I think we missed a step here. We need a motion on the floor to discuss it, and then we can vote on it.
Well,
and
right now we're discussing the project. Once the motion's on the floor, then we discuss the motion.
Well, with that being said, this project has been on the board for several years, and when it was initially approved, there was no at-grade crossing there, except for a gravel road that the farmer could take his equipment across. And it was always access from the upper end for the fire trucks and the ambulance. And, you know, going back in history, you had to drive through a cornfield to get to that house that's up there now. So nothing has really changed except there's more houses in there. There was also a requirement that was put in when the development was approved that the developer would put a red light in at the Route 40 and Blenheim Farm Lane. And it wasn't the state highway that required it. It was the city of Haverty Grace that required that. And that has never gone away. There's always been, once they hit the magic percentage of houses, that light was supposed to be installed there. So, you know, I'm in favor of moving this along, and I don't think the grade crossing should be a showstopper.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hardenstein?
Yeah, I'm sympathetic. Actually, I was trying to look for ways to strengthen number 7, not delete it. There are many developments, gated communities, peninsula in Delaware, that are quite a bit larger than Bully Rock and have one means of entrance and exit. Mr. Ward, opt out. I live in the Meadows. And I am very supportive of further development in Bully Rock. I'll say that's off the top, but opting out the Meadows, Paddocks, Highland, the only way, and the estates, the only way that we could opt out was by creating a situation where we had our own means of entrance and egress. And in the Meadows case, we forced the movement of the gate down to its current location from being closer to Chapel Road because we were grandfathered between the takeover from Able to Mannequin and that partnership. However, I don't, unless you have exclusive use to the under the railroad crossing, I don't see how you're going to opt out of having to have access to the private road that is Bully Rock or Blenheim Farm Lane, and how they would feel about that. I feel somewhat sympathetic, Shane, to the effort if we haven't contacted Dutch Rupertsberger and Van Hollen and Carden by now. I guess the question is, why not? I contacted them 2 weeks ago when our FDA delayed their approval, when Britain was approving the vaccine, and our FDA was only going to hear it, on Sunday night. I'm surprised we're not reaching out. I found Congressman Rupertsberger's constituent service to be incredibly excellent in the years that I've worked with him, and I think it. I think that we need that level crossing. That road under there, Jim, to your comment, the road under there has a huge pothole in it now. I don't know who the stones fall onto the roadway. I don't know who's taking care of that, and it isn't going to get better. So it's a real conundrum. It really is. On one hand, Mr. Ward, I really want to support you. On the other hand, we really need to have an at-grade crossing down there. I don't think that it's fair to ask you guys to build a bridge over the railroad tracks, but the at-grade, we've just got to try and do something. How did they do it at Haverty? Whatever it is, that crossing above Weiss Markets, somebody got a gated crossing there. Anyway, so it's a bit, I'm in a catch-22.
Anyone else? Would anyone like to introduce a motion? Okay, Mr. Jim Miller.
Yeah, I'd make a motion that we approve the site plan and take the planning department's recommendation and remove number 7, requiring the at-grade crossing, and put some language in there about the emergency vehicle.
Okay, Mr. Grimm, we've got a motion on the floor. Can you hold just a second?
I just wanted to, I need to correct one thing for Mr. Miller's motion. Any motion for approval should be phrased such that it is a motion to approve the site plan and subdivision plan. That's all I have.
Thank you. Clarification, Mr. Miller, would you want to read?
Yeah, I'll make that as the motion without having to repeat it all.
Say, let's do it again. Say it again, if you would.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the site plan and the development proposal. Is that what it was?
Subdivision plan.
Subdivision plan, and take the planning department's recommendation as far as number 7 goes, and include that in our motion.
Thank you, sir. Do I hear a second to that motion? Just because you second it doesn't mean you have to agree with it. It just means it puts it on the floor for discussion.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay. Ms. Shaw, you second? Did you just second that motion?
Yeah, I second it, and I understand that it doesn't necessarily mean agreement.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve the site and subdivision plan as presented, accompanied by all the conditions that are contained in the staff report, except condition number 7, which would be deleted. Now, discussion on the motion. Anyone? Councilman Renziker.
I truly feel that Mr. Subic had some very valid concerns, and I also believe that your original concerns about the crossing were very valid. And as a former member of the ambulance corps and the fire department both, I just don't feel that it's prudent at this time to approve the development for that much traffic and that much development with limited access until such time as a grade crossing is developed. So I will be voting no. Much to my lament, I do fully support development rights, and especially for developers and property owners. But at this time, I will be voting no.
Anyone else? Mr. Hartenstein.
I believe that a motion to table, at least for a month, is a superseding order over an existing motion on the floor under Roberts. Is that true? In other words, I could move to table for a specific period of time for 1 month to see if we couldn't get some reaction from the delegation on the, and I don't think that that would penalize Mr. Ward terribly, but I put a time certain on trying to get some movement on the at-grade crossing.
Okay, you left me in a parliamentarian's dilemma here. I'm not exactly sure what the process is there. Mr. Graham, can you give us any help on that?
I think I would defer to Mr. Ringsactor, who has a little bit more parliamentary procedure than I do, as far as what you would do.
All right, Jim, what do you say?
Well, I believe that according to Robert's Rules of Orders, we can offer a and not an amendment, but I believe the original motion would have to be withdrawn, and then you would have to do a motion to table.
I agree. I think that's the appropriate course.
All right.
I do not, excuse me, I don't believe that's the case. I think you vote, you can move to table a motion, and you table the motion and hold the motion in abeyance. It's common under Roberts.
That's fine too.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Jim, what'd you say?
That's acceptable as well.
All right, Mr. Miller, Jim Miller?
My motion does not have to be withdrawn. A motion to table is in order at any time as long as it's seconded. There's no discussion on the tabling. It's either a vote up or vote down, and that's where you move along. And that's Robert's Rules of Order.
Okay, so now we have a motion to table. And do I have a second on that motion? The motion to table for 1 month. Mr. Renziker?
I second the table the motion for 1 month, so we can properly reach out to channels to find out more information about the grade crossing, as the motion wasn't properly explained why we're tabling.
Thank you. So the motion has been is on the floor. It's been seconded, and that motion has now been tabled and seconded for 1 month. And so that should conclude this hearing.
You have to vote on it.
Hmm?
You have to vote on.
That's right. We got to vote on the table, don't we? Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. So I'm gonna call a roll on the motion to table. Mrs. Ware?
Yes.
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 Councilman Renziker?
Yes, on the motion to table.
Mr. Miller?
Yes, motion to table.
Yeah, I got it. Mr. Jim Miller?
I'm going to vote no.
Okay. Mr. Hartenstein?
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Harry Miller?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So by a vote of 6-1, we have tabled the motion for 30 days. And that concludes this hearing tonight. We have one more piece of business. I'm going to call on Mr. Renzecker to provide us a briefing on an entirely separate matter that has nothing to do with subdivisions. You're on.
Mr. Chair, Council, Chair, Commission, members in attendance online. Miss Boyer, Councilwoman Boyer, did introduce at the last, wanted to introduce at the last council meeting. It was withdrawn, but she's resubmitting for the next hearing. It's going to be on the agenda for a zoning change to the RO district only. What brought about the change, the proposed change, was Mount Zion Baptist Church approached us after vacating their building on Lewis Street by the funeral home near the hospital behind the parking garage. They vacated their church, moved to Aberdeen. They still own that property. They would like to set up, first it came out that they wanted to set up a homeless shelter. And then they curtailed that a little bit to be a short stay, 90-day max women and children's shelter only. They asked us to come down and visit it, and a few council members did. They did like the idea of it, the members that went, and they, Ms. Boyer did write up legislation that was withdrawn, and the formatting was changed a little bit with the understanding in good faith that it would be placed on the agenda. It was asked that it be brought to the Planning Commission. We didn't feel that it was prudent necessarily, especially with the amount of business this evening, to fully go over it, but I at least wanted it on your radar that it's coming. If it passes first reading this coming meeting, it'll have to have a public hearing with the council and then a second hearing with the council, second reading with the council before it's approved. If it passes the first reading, I'd like to call a commission meeting specifically to gauge the response from the commission on the changes to the RO district. There's some concerns about spot zoning and a few other legal aspects of it, but I just at least wanted it to on everybody's radar on what's going on with the proposed legislation from Councilwoman Boyer about changing the zoning for conditional use in the RO district for very specific regulations on a 90-day in-house homeless and I guess shelter of some sort. So I wanted that to be on your radar before this next coming council meeting. So I do encourage every member of the commission, if you could watch the video on Monday night, you'll get a little bit more insight into that. And if it does pass, I'll send that out to everybody and request a commission meeting to properly discuss that and gauge the response from the commission to vote on how the commission feels about the proposed ordinance change. So that's all I have to offer. I try to keep it as short, as succinct as possible, Mr. Ford. And I hope that if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask me. So barring that, that's all I have, sir.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Any other matters for the, yes, Mr. Hartenstein.
Jeff, a question for you. While the meeting's going on, we're getting chat messages from the outside that are kind of politicking the decision. Is it possible to block those? They're flashing up on the screen.
I'm sorry, say, I didn't understand that exactly.
Some of the people who had presented testimony earlier are coming in with chats, and it flashes up on the screen. I agree with, you know.
Yeah, I saw a couple of those.
Yeah, I'm not sure that they're appropriate to maybe it's not possible to do anything.
I didn't see anything that was out of turn or wasn't addressed verbally or through Mr. Shane. So the chat is just that. It's just the same as a comment live, just via the chat. It all tied in. So everything I saw tied in.
Okay.
Is that, I guess, what Mr. Hartenstein's concern is that kosher for us to be seeing that stuff while we're, without people just testifying? In other words, it almost is as if it's testimony that's fallen through the cracks.
Again, I guess that's something that should have been addressed prior, but nothing that I saw. In a sense, all I saw was information going through Mr. Grimm, who then read that into the record.
Yeah.
That's everything I saw. I didn't see anything out of turn or
Oh,
out of line.
during Jeff, during testimony, people were endorsing various positions that were taken actively.
Yeah, I was getting several attaboys and that sort of thing, and
Right.
I agree with you and all this. And
It is possible that someone could come into this meeting or the EDAB meeting on Wednesday and start to participate in that way without having identified themselves by name, address, or as is normally required for presentations.
And
again, something we can discuss, but these were folks that were approved to be in the meeting. These were not outsiders that were not previously identified, had an address identified.
we understand that part,
Right, okay.
Jeff. The problem is these little comments that are popping up like little pop-ups on the screen are not getting into the record. And is there any way to block that stuff?
I guess what I'm saying, Mr. Ford, is that I believe every comment that was addressed was properly identified into the record via Mr. Grimm.
I think what Mr. Hartenstein's saying is that he was directly receiving messages versus the group receiving messages from individuals.
I didn't see that. All I saw were a few early on about the technical issues that Mr. Scooby was having. And then everything else was to the entire group that I can see. And in fact, I made a note to Mr. Grimm about, are you picking these up, to make sure that he was seeing those and reading them into record. So I didn't see anything in this instance that stepped out of bounds. Now, perhaps something going forward.
Well, what's going on is
we could disable the chat feature altogether.
We're being individually targeted with these remarks. It's not going out to all of you.
Okay.
And
So
that would
again,
explain why we weren't seeing them.
right. That's what I'm saying. I can't see that. So I guess in the future, we would have to turn off
how
the chat features completely. Again, new territory with bringing the public into these.
Yeah.
We were not aware that that was going on in a back channel. Had we known sooner, Adam or I could have perhaps intervened, but we did not know that was going on. And everything I saw was going through the group and was being addressed by Mr. Grimm, formally being read into record. So that's all I was aware of. So to your point, Mr. Hartenstein, I was not aware of those back channel chats, as I'm sure Adam just referenced. We did not know that was going on.
They were well after Mr. Grimm's comments. They were cheering individual speakers and presenters.
Yeah, that's what was going on.
Okay. Well, that's something we need to know going forward then.
Of course, we ignored all that stuff, but
I think moving forward, if we can, we just disable the chat, because everybody has my email, and if they need to send me something directly, but also it's challenging for me to try to, certainly I can imagine, it didn't seem like in this instance, but some people might get upset if you don't respond to them. Well, it's challenging for me to respond while I'm trying to.
Right. I think the best thing going forward is for as soon as we go to commission discussion, we just disable all the chats.
Yeah.
And that's fine. It takes all the chats off the table. So anyone having technical difficulties, we would have no way to communicate, but that's fine. We can turn it off completely.
Well, that's a learning experience. So.
Right. Learning experience.
Yeah, my meeting keeps jumping in and out. I'll reply on Jim's comment about the church. Why can't the church go through the normal channels and request a variance instead of trying to change the ordinance? They can come in and apply for a variance.
No, you're talking about.
I'm talking about this church wanting to put in a.
Well, tonight, what Councilman Renziger and I determined tonight when he asked to present this little briefing was that we would not discuss that case at all. We wouldn't get into any discussion. All we would do is hear his briefing, and it would not be fair until we've all had a chance to read the proposed ordinance, to even start a discussion. And so I think it's better for us to just enjoy what he had to say tonight. And then when we have our hearing on that subject, we'll have the discussions like you're talking about.
Okay, and
Fair enough?
yeah, sure, that'll work. One other thing, I visited the sites at Bully Rock the other day, and trying to get through the gates up there now, they have guards up there, and the guard asked me for some ID. I said, I have a driver's license. I explained what I was doing, who I was, why I was there, and he said, well, you need some type of official ID. So can the city come up with some type of card or something, maybe take our picture and say, planning commissioner, so when we go to these sites, we can get on there? Because Bully Rock is locked down now. You can't get past the golf course entrance, and you can't come in from the upper end without someone's code letting you in up there.
Now, if you're coming in from the lower end and just past the clubhouse, you can't get through that gate either. That's manned as well.
No, that's got a push button.
So all you gotta do is just push the button, right?
Yeah, but it's a code that you have to have, and so you need access. Coming in the main entrance up there by the clubhouse, there's a guard there. And he wouldn't let me in until I showed him an email on my phone from Shane and said, yeah, I'm dealing with the planning commission there.
Yeah.
They requested some.
Warren, go ahead.
Once the new gates go in here off Chapel on Blenheim Farm Lane, the gates are up. They just haven't manned it, but they're going to go to a 24-hour-a-day close, and you're not going to be able to get in. So you won't be able to get in from Route 40 beyond the clubhouse, and you won't be able to get into the community at all. I won't. Well, we have a special agreement with Bully Rock, so we have special access because they have an easement on some of the Meadows property. But yeah, you're going to be barricaded.
Let me pose a question, and this, I'm not trying to reopen the case we just heard. It's an informational question. If I'm coming to the new subdivision at the bottom of the hill, and I have an oversized vehicle, and I'm coming down there to visit somebody, and I get through the upper gates coming down, now it's time for me to go home, and I can't go under that little bridge. How do I get out of there?
You have to scroll to someone's phone number within the community that you know, and they have to touch a button to open the gate.
Really?
Yeah. And that's how it'll be that way 24 hours a day, actually.
I'm just going to call you, Warren.
Well, actually, I don't have the pass yet. Once the gates close, we will have passes. But if you talk to me offline, I do know a code that can be punched in. And,
okay.
But if you give it to anybody, it absolutely defeats the purpose, and it will endanger not the community, but the people who gave me the code.
My initial request was we need some type of official ID, because it's not only Bully Rock, it's any other proposed development that's coming before the commission. Everybody should go out and be familiar with it, and by law, you're allowed to go there. So when you show up and they say, oh, you're trespassing, you can say, oh, I'm performing my official duties. Here's my ID.
Well, if we do an ID like that, it would have to also state on the back of that ID what the statute is that allows us to do that. So that, because otherwise the guy will say, okay, you're on the planning commission, I see that, but I ain't letting you in here.
I'm sure Adam can figure it out.
Let's take that up with the planning department. I'll keep that one alive. And thank you for that suggestion. Actually, not a bad idea. Any other business for the commission tonight? Have we had enough? Do I hear a motion that we adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
We are adjourned, and thank you so much, and we'll keep you posted on when we take this case up again. Good
Thank you
night,
so much,
everybody.
guys.
Thank you.